My name is Upatissa. We live in extremely fortunate times to be born human beings and to have access to the teachings of the Buddha. Today, 26 centuries after the demise of Lord Buddha and his chief disciples, a small number of bhikkhus still aspire to practice the Eightfold Noble Path, having relinquished the material world. Bhante Candana is one of them, but his noble endeavors are unsustainable without our support. So, if you feel inspired by Bhante's teachings, please consider. A timely donation from the right places goes a long way to prolong the Buddha's dispensation. May the blessings of the Triple Gems be with you. Sukhi Hotu.
How to make the most of one's life. How to make the most of the life you've been, or you have basically at the moment. The vigor or the ability to breathe. The ability to digest food. To work, to have a job in the first place. To be able to speak. To be able to convey your thoughts. Basically be a functional human being. How to make the most of that, given that you are also provided with time. How to make the most of it as far as living a full spiritual life is concerned in this dispensation, according to the teachings of the Buddha. How? There's a term, there's a state that often is camouflaged, is hidden, lies dormant in pretty much all that we do, how we function, and that is agitation. It's a state that goes contrary to whatever the Dhamma is trying to provide for us, to teach us, to guide us out of, and to attain freedom, liberation, which commonly is referred to as Nibbana. Nibbana is a state of non-agitation. That's one way of saying it also. Because one cannot be even close, getting close to Nibbana, or even, attaining to something like mental clarity or lucidity of deep meditative states, such as jhana, for example, while agitation is there. It's not possible. I've often spoken about remorse and how detrimental, how poisonous, how venomous it is to have that lurking in your, mental bloodstream, in your heart, in your moment-to-moment living, because it dilapidates, it steals away, drains you from such life that can be helping you. But the remorse will come and cover it up by the bringing in of information such as memories, such as, oh, I can't believe I said that, or I did that, or I thought that. Those are all akusala, or unwholesome, or unskillful states that you're bringing in and creating remorse. So what does remorse do in essence? What is what is it that it's creating? Agitation. That's why we keep precepts. That's why we're always striving to be virtuous. It's not, you do not practice virtue to look good to other people, okay? Maintaining and keeping your precepts is not for other people first. It is to free you, free yourself, free your mind, free your heart from that constant state of turmoil, which is the agitation that I'm referring to, in the presence of which there cannot be Nibbana. Forget it. No amount of book knowledge, no amount of years in robes, hiding in a kuti, in solitude, living in seclusion somewhere in the woods, in the forest, somewhere where you never see any other person other than the person who brings you food, let's say, for years. But if you have agitation in your heart, you are so far away from even smelling Nibbana. So agitation. But when you look around, that's what you see. You see situations, you see circumstances, you see all the conditions that are all geared towards keeping you in a constant state of agitation. Everything you look at as not just, this is not about monastics now, this is about everyone. You look around the world, you see so much injustice. You look at the blue sky in 1 minute, and next you see all these shooting planes. They're, crisscrossing each other. They're creating this lattice formation, and then they're saying there's no chemtrails. Meanwhile, people are behaving suddenly in a weird manner. After a few hours or an hour has passed, once all that chemical has landed. What do you do when the whole media, everybody's saying, well, there's no chemtrails? Well, it's if you have eyes, it's like somebody saying there's no gravity. What are they fumigating us with? I remember, it was in my lifetime when people were still using DDTs. And then there was a big noise and regulations, this and that, to stop the DDTs. Okay, fine. And now they're not doing DDT to the soil, they're doing DDT to the whole planet. Because it's very obvious what they're trying to do. They actually said it. They want to drop our quantity, okay? They want to get rid of as many of us as possible. They've said this. Okay, that I only say it because it's a situation that ultimately we don't have a control over. That's how I see it. Others might disagree with this, of course. By all means, But you look at your body. You can't control when it's going to, want to go to the bathroom, when it gets hungry, when it gets thirsty. You don't have control over that. How about a relationship with someone else? Your significant other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever. They don't behave exactly as you would like them to. So if you're lucky, you will go and see a therapist. Well, even if you have the best therapist in the world guiding you, giving you the right tools, you still have to work on those tools. They're just tools. So you have to apply those tools. Both of you, not just one. So you see so many variables are at work here, which also brings up what? The fact that you have ultimately zero control of the outside situations. What do you do when the politicians are, using and abusing their roles to take? This whole world is run on greed now. Everything, technology is run on greed. Businesses are run on greed. Well, you can't do that and get good results. Technology cannot be running on greed. But that's what we have, and that's why the world is in this state. But again, these are outside factors. So remember, the Dhamma, Buddhism as such, is not in a vacuum. It looks at the world. That's why I always look at contemporary issues that people are dealing with, we are dealing with, have to deal with. Instead of sticking our head into the sand and saying these things are not happening, okay, kumbaya, and let's go into the forest and do a retreat and forget about this ever happening. And let the politicians run that. You have tons and tons of monks who do this, by the way. I'm not one of them. I will never be one of them. That's quite callous, that's quite indifferent, that is un-Buddhist. That is not why we are in robes. That's my position. I can't run under the skirt or umbrella or power or prestige of a ruler of a country like a king or something like that and just follow whatever dictates they come up with their highly questionable virtuous life, meaning non-virtuous, by the way, and while at the same time claiming that I am practicing Lord Buddha's Dhamma and discipline. They don't go together. You're simply protecting your title. You're simply protecting your prestige, your temples, your monasteries, etc., etc. All these things are outside. So we have to be able to speak the truth. And the truth must come from a place of non-agitation, ultimately. Ultimately. Why? Because that's the only way that we're going to taste the Dhamma, Nibbana. But that's what we have, unfortunately. When a person looks at another and says, you know, I see you being my partner in life. I finally found you. I found you. Okay. You found me. Yes, wonderful. Let's go and get married. Okay, they go get married. What they essentially did, they opened up a whole universe of agitation. Then they want to have children. Wonderful. Okay, go for it. Make sure you're good parents to begin with. Make sure you are both on the same page, as it were, when it comes to the discipline of the child, because children need discipline. Okay, this whole nonsense about, child-centered and all that, people don't understand what that means. Like in therapy, we have client-centered. Some genius came up with that, without understanding what we mean. Child-centered does not mean that you leave it up to the child. The child is a bundle of possibilities. They are completely lost in delusion. They don't have anything. So this is a moment where you need to approach the child with so much care, love, tenderness, but also discipline. You need to show them what is right from wrong. Why? Because you've been on the planet longer than they have. It's common sense. So there's a right way of understanding child-centered and a wrong way of understanding, and that's what most people are doing. That's why a child comes up to mom and says, "Mommy, I'm a cat now." Or I'm going to be, an elephant, or I'm a hyena now. And the city or the government comes in and says, "You don't have the right to say otherwise. You have to let the child be that." Okay, you mind your own business. Okay, I'm paying my taxes. You be quiet over there and do your job, upholding the law. This is not the law. You are actually coming into my family and you are disrupting the whole sanctity of my family and just sanctity of the human species. So you see, it's multi-pronged. That's why we cannot divorce ourselves from these terrible things that are happening around us. Those days are gone. Let me just tell you that, if you haven't picked it up by now from all these talks I've given, these Q&As. Those days where a bhikkhu could go into his kuti and the world would stop and they would just be there and not be impacted by the world. That, by the way, never happened. But at least the image of, all that, that idealizing of that is over. Because now the world has become such a small pocket, such a small bundle of craziness, injustices, inequities, and all that, where it really requires you to apply several tools to bring out your whole arsenal of instruments and tools and methods of approaching difficulties and using them every single day. That includes patience, that includes practicing of virtue constantly, meaning sila. It has to be continuous. You must practice sati, you must practice mindfulness, meaning you must be practicing daily meditation. Don't rely on what you did yesterday. Don't rely on what you did 10 years ago. Because the rate at which we're going now, it's exponential. But it's key for you to maintain a non-agitated state. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to explain by showing you different layers at the same time. So it might be overwhelming at times to some listeners, but be patient. Which is first to start with you. So you must maintain a non-agitated state in spite of all these things happening in and around you, but especially around you. So the father or mother seeing the children behave a certain way, you need to come from a source that is individual. So you need to come from you, and your heart must be, your mind must be non-agitated, at least for a small portion of your day. From where you're going to come forward and you're going to share a state of non-agitation with those around you, which is going to be a breath of fresh air. It's like an oasis that you offered to the world that is lost in the desert. That means it could be your partner, your wife, your husband. When your child, let's say especially a teenager, is behaving in abnormal ways, defiant, causing you to become angry, because you feel like they're just berserk, they're just acting out. What do? Primal tendencies come up. You get angry. In some extreme cases, people hit each other. I've seen that. That doesn't help. That means there's zero control. So control is necessary. So you need to be able to persevere, but not just for the sake of perseverance. No. You need to drop into a state of non-agitation. So of course there needs to be actively taken steps, such as if you're dealing with a teenager who's completely off the rails, even saying nasty words to their parents, you look at them. Don't say a word. And then step away. And give them the gift of missing you. I've heard that phrase once. Give them the gift of missing you. Sooner or later they're going to need something from you, People often ignore the power of their behavior. Your behavior will say so much than your words could ever tell another person as to what you mean, because your words can be deceiving to you and to others, even if you don't know that you're doing it. But your behavior will not. The power of stillness cannot be overemphasized. Like that image of an oasis. Everybody's eyes, whoever is walking in the desert, is going to be, boom, locked on. In the vastness of the dryness of the Sahara, they will be locked on that tiny little green dot. And they will know what's there. They will know there's an oasis there. And they're going to run to it. It has a gravitational pull. Like the flame that attracts the moth. So when you are still in your response to a teenager or someone behaving in, well, let's say, out of character, it's not necessarily always advisable, of course, to leave the room, but sometimes that's the best thing to do, especially if it's escalating. Sometimes people use leaving the room as their defense mechanism and nothing gets solved. In fact, you're just suppressing. You're not dealing with the situation. Sometimes you can just sit there and, without leaving the room, you tell the other person with your silence that I don't accept this, but I'm not going to engage with this. So our behavior tells so much to others. But you cannot do that unless you are in a state of non-agitation. So this takes work, as you can imagine. So this is where sati really does wonders for you. Mindfulness, practicing. Which foot am I placing in front of the other as I'm walking from here to there in my room? Going in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the house. So we start with simple steps. Instead of wanting to all of a sudden run a 100-meter dash. It's not possible when we're starting from scratch. So here's where you need to develop kindness and tolerance towards you, forgiveness towards you. If you're unable, if you still are exploding, you're yelling, and then you're feeling regret, what is that going to do? Remorse. And what is that going to do? Agitation. So you're going to feel horrible after that. Okay. Instead of beating yourself up, how could I was trying to be non-agitated and still I am. Okay, relax. Breathe, step away from that moment, go isolate yourself somewhere for a moment and say, yes, I did that, but did I want to have that happen? No. Okay. Dwelling on the past, that it happened, isn't going to help me much. It's going to make me become even more agitated. Is that good or bad? It's bad. So what do? I have to pick myself up from my bootlaces, lift myself off the ground and stand up. Eventually, next time, you're going to notice that you're not going to falter. You're not going to easily collapse. And others will come to you and say, wow, I didn't notice that you have such self-control. I thought you might explode. I thought you might, hit him or yell at him or swear. You would retaliate. But I didn't see that. Or somebody might come and ask you for clues. How do you do that? So what I'm saying is this is a gradual training. Unfortunately, we're living in a time period where it's always instant gratification, instant accomplishment, instant. Every person wants to become like an instant celebrity. Instant success. Instant teachers. Just look over online and you see everybody's becoming like a teacher these days. We have to learn how to be true students in life. A true student is one who can learn. Because so long as we are covering up our agitation, we have a lot to learn. Perhaps no other time in history has the human brain been so hyperactive, agitated. When the mind is going deeper and deeper in the practice of meditation, one becomes very sensitive to the tiniest perturbance or fluctuations and spikes of these very, very, very subtle points of agitation. Joy is an example. Even though it's like, piti, we have piti, which is spiritual joy, as one of the 7 factors of awakening, the sambojjhangas or sattabojjhangas in this Dhamma and discipline. However, even that has to be used sparingly to pull you out and out of, basically, states of being stuck, dullness, etc. So it has a wonderful quality. So agitation in that sense works, but it works to some degree, because soon enough you have to drop it back to passaddhi, which is tranquility of the mind, and then samadhi, so that you can eventually experience upekkha, which is equanimity, which is non-agitation, by the way. And that's where you will also experience wisdom at a deeper, deeper, unprecedented level. But today, everybody is, wanting to be excited. When you go traveling and then come back, or, somebody asks you, so was it fun? What are they trying to say? What are they trying to ask? Was it exciting? What does excite mean? Excite. It's, you're cutting yourself, Xing, okay? You're severing yourself, sighting. I don't know the roots, the word over here, but basically excitement, to me, at least, it conjures up the image of agitation, turbulence, friction, movement. Well, what is Nibbana? A state of non-movement. That's why some people, in their practice, they all of a sudden, when the mind finally goes and tastes deep enough, goes and tastes some level of equanimity, they come back and say, Bhante, what's happening? I lost all my joy, there's nothing, there's like, I feel like, I'm bored, I'm this, I'm that, nothing's happening. To them, so-called nothing's happening is nothing worthwhile is happening. Why? Because the mind or the brain had gotten used to thinking that in order for something to be happening, quote unquote, there needs to be agitation. Even this recent interest in the West, at least, with during the last 10 years or 15 years with the jhanas, this whole business with jhanas, it's a business, by the way, because you have many people charging an arm and a leg, or charging even a dime to get you to go and do their retreats, writing books, and monks and non-monastics. That's what they're seeking, is basically excitement. To them, the jhanas are exciting, at least the first few, but then the other ones, they're not that exciting to begin with. But you can talk about that later to others. That's why one of the worst things that some of these characters will hear is from the teacher, a good teacher, if they could ever find one, telling them, hey, you need to stop talking. This is a private thing. This is between you and I. That's it. You, the student, I as your teacher. We don't discuss this outside. Well, that blows the whole thing out of, because that was the big deal. So now they're going to leave the retreat and they're going to fly back to their home, their country, and their friends and their family know that they were on a retreat. So what did you do? Was it fun? Was it exciting? Did you reach a certain jhana? If they know these things, and chances are you've told them. So what are you going to tell them? You can't keep silent about it. So what is this? What is the mind seeking? It's seeking gratification. It's seeking acceptance. It's seeking wow from others. That's the thing that's driving the person. This is spiritually begging. This is disgusting. This is I have a hard time finding the words for it. Destitute. Spiritual destitute. Why? Because the person has misunderstood the whole point of the Dhamma. That's why many people break away and go back and want to become teachers. Because they've tasted a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that was it. Because now the excitement it needs to drop. Some people go and go on this whole psychedelic bandwagon because that's the flavor of the month, and camouflage it, sugarcoat it with some Dhamma here and there, and then they can drop names. Oh, I studied with this teacher, this and that. The mind is all at a loss. It's agitated. And nothing's being done with this very precious time that you have. How are you going to make the most of your time here while you're occupying this body? Not enough people are asking this question from themselves, of themselves. Why? That's the question. Why? Because the pain is not deep enough. The pain of discomfort, of seeing what's happening, becoming disgusted by it, and wanting out, wanting to be out. That is why we develop this desire to leave suffering behind. That is the essence of Samvega. Developing a sense of urgency. And Lord Buddha had a response for that. He called it Sanditthiko. The Dhamma is Sanditthiko. It's you can see it right here. You don't have to wait too long. You just have to see it for what it is, but don't add anything to it. When you remove agitation, what happens? There's stillness. Okay, there you go. The Sanditthiko right there in your face. Yet we have these buts listed. But. We always have these counter arguments. But we never ask where these counter arguments are coming from. The mind is used to seeing agitation as a normal state of affairs. It is not. When you're talking about proper spiritual practice, agitation must be removed. At the very least, when the person is going deeper and deeper in the practice.